Hello everyone, welcome back again to our channel Coder Circuit. In today's video, we'll be talking about one of the most important concepts in any programming language, and for that, we are going to talk in Java. Okay, so the topic that I'm going to take up today is exception handling in Java. Okay, so if you go for any competitive interview questions, or if you go for any competitive interview that you are appearing for, exception handling is a very important concept. Okay, so we'll start with that. And before starting this video, I would like to request all of you, as always, to please like and share our videos if you really like the content. And at the same time, if at all you feel that we are bringing good content to you, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and also hit the bell icon so that you receive notifications regarding our latest updates. Thank you. So without any more further ado, let's get started and talk about exception handling in Java. Okay, guys, I am going to divide this tutorial into parts so that it becomes easy for you to understand this. Okay, because exception handling is a very vast concept and it cannot be done in one single video. So what we will do, we will take it into four parts. Okay, so that we can understand and implement all the stuff in different scenarios. Okay, so let's get started with part one. Now then, let me go to Microsoft Whiteboard and give you a brief idea about what actually is exception handling. Okay, so here I am inside my whiteboard. Imagine I have something like this. Okay, I'm drawing a house. Okay, say imagine you are starting from your house, and I'm imagining that you are a student. Okay, so what I do, I'm saying that you go to your school in the morning. So, what is your day to day task? Something like this. Say, in the morning, you wake up and then you start for your school. You go to your school and then you study there, obviously, and then you come back, right? So, this is just a normal flow of execution, okay, that you do day to day. So, you start from your home, okay, then you go to school, and then you again return back to home. That's your normal flow of your work process or your flow, okay. But imagine sometimes what happens, you are starting from your school. Let me draw this diagram again so that you can understand this thing even clearly. So imagine you are again starting from your home towards your school with all your belongings, whatever you have, say school bag, water bottle, etc. etc. Then you are going to your school now. But what happens all of a sudden, it starts raining. Now, what is it that you are gonna do? You have to reach your school. Okay. Now, the best possible solution for you is I'm giving you a real time example so that you can understand better. You will take an umbrella and you can simply walk across the road and simply you can go to your school. Correct. And then you can easily attend your classes and you can study and then you can come back home. Correct. Okay. So, what is happening here? This rain that came here, you can see, right? This rain that came here is actually disturbing the normal flow of execution of your workflow. Correct? So, in terms of programming, that is called an exception. Okay? Anything that disturbs the normal flow of execution of a program is known as exception. Now, what did you do? You used the umbrella, right? You can see here, you used the umbrella. So, your umbrella will become the handler. Okay? So anything that disturbs the normal flow of execution of a code is known as an exception, and the way you handle that exception is known as exception handling. Okay. So because we want to get at least the normal flow, right? We want to get some predefined output, even if we are getting an exception. Okay. So anything that disturbs the normal flow of execution of your code is known as an exception, and the process of handling those kind of exceptions is known as exception handling. Okay. So now I hope you can understand about this and you have got a great picture about this, right, in your mind. So if at all you were asked this kind of questions in the interview, you can simply say that, okay, I was about to go to my school, but because of rain, I couldn't go normally. So what I did, I used an umbrella to handle that rain, and then I'm easily going to my school and studying and coming back. Okay. So normal flow is normally starting in the morning and getting ready, going to school, but abnormal or disturbed flow is something like this. You were going to the school and all of a sudden it starts raining and you take an umbrella and you go to school. Okay. So I hope you have understood this, right? So now, as we know the basic idea of exceptions, now let us talk about the exception handling hierarchy in Java. Okay. So what you do, we all know that the object class in Java is the parent class of all class in Java, right? Okay. Inside that, we have all the child classes that we have in Java. Okay. So you should know one thing, every error and exception in Java, they will come under one parent class. The name of that parent class is throwable. Okay, makes sense? So, throwable again extends the object class. Okay, because object class is the parent of all classes in Java. Okay, fine. So, every error and exception will come under the parent class throwable. Fine. Now, I have already told you about exceptions, anything that disturbs the normal flow of execution of your code, right? Now, what is an error? Error is something that cannot be handled, okay? Fine. So, imagine you have a 4 GB phone and you want to install an application which needs at least minimum of 16 GB, okay? Make sense? Now, what happens? Can you install it in your phone? It's not possible. It will say out of memory error, okay? So that means I don't have the prerequisite resources to install this particular application. That's why it is saying you don't have that particular amount of memory to store this application or to install this application. That is called out of memory error, or that is actually an error. Okay. And errors are divided into basically two types: compile time and runtime. Okay. Fine. And error is something that you cannot handle. Okay. It cannot be handled. Exception is something that can be handled. We can do some tweaks to our code and we can handle the exceptions that occur in our code. Okay. But we cannot handle errors. Fine. So with that, we have two types of exceptions that I'm going to tell you about right now. Okay. If you initially or while writing the code, if you know about the kind of exception that you are going to get in your code, that is called a checked exception. Okay. And if there is some error or exception that occurs in your code and that you don't know about, okay, that is undefined or that is something that is uncertain actually, okay, that you don't know about, that is called unchecked exception. Okay. It's like something like this. Imagine I'm going to college for a class and I don't know about the subject of that particular period in that class. Okay. So, what I will do, I will take a rough notebook. Correct. But if I know that I have a mathematics class, I will take my maths books and the maths notebooks. Correct. So, that is something like this. When I know about the exceptions, then I will call them under the checked exceptions. But if I am not certain about the exceptions, those fall under the category of unchecked exceptions. Okay. Now I hope you have got a very good idea about what are exceptions. Okay. Please remember these things, and if you can pause and take a screenshot or if you can write it down, that will be very good because this type of questions are very frequently asked in the interviews. Okay. Now, done with this, what we do, we go to the IDE and we try to implement whatever we have seen here. Okay. So let's go to our IDE now. I'll minimize this and let's start with my IntelliJ IDE. Here I have already created a package. Here I have already created a class for you where I'm going to write the code now. Okay. So I've taken example one. Now what I do, let me take the main function and let us try to understand what we just learned in theory. Let us try to implement that in practical. Okay. So I will take three variables int a comma b comma c is equal to, I'm initializing c to 0. Okay, then I will simply write something like this. A is equal to, let me take 20, b is equal to, let me take 5, and I will say c is equal to a divided by b. Okay, now after that let me print the value of c. So as simple as that, you can see here that 20 by 5 will be 4, and I will get the output as 4. Correct? Let me run this, and you can obviously see that I have got the value 20 divided by 5, which is 4. Fine. Now, this is the normal flow of execution of your program. There is no interruption or exceptions. Okay. But imagine if I divide 20 by 0. You can see already I have got a kind of exception. In mathematics, when you divide something by 0, we get the term called infinity. But there is nothing called infinity in Java. Okay. Here what happens, if you try to divide this, let's see. Okay. Let me run this and show you. Yes, you can see here, guys. Exception in thread mean java.lang arithmetic exception. And you can see the message divide by 0. Okay. Now the problem is, this is not a good way of representing your code, and at least I expected to get the default value c equal to 0. Even that is not getting printed, right? So we use try catch to actually deal with exception in Java. Okay, if you have come from C++, there also we use C try catch. Okay, so let me show you like this. We use a try block. Fine. If at all we get any exceptions while dealing with this, then what we do, we catch the exceptions in the catch block. Now already we have seen the exception that we got here, right? See, arithmetic exception. Any kind of exception that belongs to the mathematical categories will come under arithmetic exception. Okay, so I will just write arithmetic exception, and by syntax we create the object e, and then finally we just say s out e. Okay, now I hope you've understood. So let me just give you a brief idea again. We try to do something here in the try block. If at all we have any exception, we catch that exception in the catch block. Okay, that's it. Now let's see if I run it, what we get. Okay, you can see here we got this message java.lang.arithmetic exception divide by 0, and finally you can see, guys, the basic or the default value of c equal to 0 is also getting printed. Okay, so this is cool, right? At least we got the default value and we are able to handle the exception that we are getting. But now by looking at the output, you can already see that this kind of a message is not good for the end user, the person whoever is using. Suppose this is a calculator. Okay, we are trying to divide a by b, and then by mistake the user says 20 by 0. In that case, this is not a good message to display to the user, right? See, whenever we deal with the exceptions, we have to give some messages to the user so that the user can understand what is happening. Now, by looking at this code, a normal person cannot understand what is happening. Yes. So what we can do, we can just comment this line, and we can also say s out a customized message. I can say invalid division by 0. Okay. Now let's run this and check out what we get. Okay, guys, you can see here we are getting this customized message. Now this is very proper, and it will actually tell you what is happening with the code. Obviously, right? You can see that even a layman or a simple user can understand what is happening with the code right now. Whenever the user presses 20 by 0 and hits enter, obviously he will get this message. Then he or she will easily understand that, okay, I have done something wrong, I should not divide by 0. Okay. Now this is one case. Now for interview purpose, you have to remember one thing very important. Okay. Sometimes they can ask you, by looking at this simple output, we cannot say which line is giving us the exception. Now whenever you are building real-time applications, so what happens is there is a very big catch here. Imagine your code is around 10,000 lines. Now how can you find out which line is throwing this exception? Not practical, right? So in that kind of cases, the interviewer might ask you, which line is throwing the exception? Can you tell me? So there, what you do as a developer, you can write down something like this. Take the object e dot. There is something called print stack trace. Okay, this actually gives you the exact line number where the exception is occurring. Okay, so if I run this now, see the output now. You'll understand that. Okay, makes sense. You can see here example 1 dot Java 9. The line number line is actually throwing the exception. You can see here, right? Okay. So this is a very good way of actually debugging your code. You can understand which line is giving you the exception. Okay. But if you don't want to do that, you can simply give the customized message. Okay. Now let's do one thing. I will show you one more thing that can happen. This is one kind of exception. And guys, I told you, right? If you know about the exception, then this is called a checked exception. Because I know that this is a mathematical error, I can take this arithmetic exception class and easily access the properties of this class. Okay, but imagine I have a array is equal to, sorry, I have to give this brackets, and let me say I have one five elements. Okay, now say imagine I want to print the array element at a particular index called 10. Okay, so you can see here I have only 5 elements inside the array, but I am trying to access the element at index number 10. Okay, so is it possible? Not possible. But right now, by looking at the code, can you tell me, will the code reach this line or this line? Let us run this and see. So I'm running this. You can see here it is not reaching that line. The problem is we already have an exception in line number line. So my JVM on the compiler is telling me that boss, you have to correct this thing first, then only you can go to the next line. Okay. So what we do, let me write 10 here and we correct this. Now you can see the warning got changed from here to here as soon as I wrote 10 here. You can see here, right? I'm getting this. Now let's run this. Now this is a different kind of exception, guys. You can see here array index out of bounds exception and index 10 out of bounds for length 5. Absolutely correct, right? It says you have designed or created an array of 5 elements, and now you are trying to access the element at index number 10, which is not at all possible. That's why the compiler is throwing an exception, which is array index out of bounds exception. Okay, so what do we do? We can have multiple catch blocks which can hold or which can handle multiple exceptions that occur in our code. Okay, so this time it is array index out of bound exception, and simply create the object e and I can print a message like this: invalid array index. Okay, so now let's run this and see what we get. Yes, this is a good way of handling that. You can see here, right? We are getting the customized message called invalid array index. Okay, and then we are getting the normal value of c, which is 10 twos are 20. Okay, fine, no problem at all. Now then, these are the kind of exceptions that actually are known to us. We know about them. Arithmetic exception, all the mathematical calculations will fall under this. And imagine all the array problems or array related index related problems will be coming under this class, array index out of bound exception. Okay, but imagine if there is something else happening to your code, then how do you catch them? Then in that kind of scenario we use the base class of exceptions. Okay, so catch, if you don't know about any kind of exceptions, you just call the exception class and create the object, and you can use a customized message like this, say something unexpected happen. Okay, now if you run this now, obviously this array index exception will be handled by this particular block, right? This particular block. Let me run this now. Okay, you can see I have this, but my question is, when do you get this particular catch block executed? Okay, let me do one thing for you. Let me just delete this too. Okay, now let us run this. Fine, you can see that we are handling an exception by using the base class of all exceptions. Okay, exception E. Okay, so when you are not certain about the kind of exception that we are getting, we can use the base class. Okay, now I have one more question for you, which is very frequently asked in the interview. It is something like this. Okay, so I will cut this from here and put it here on top. Now you can see the interviewer can ask you like this: why is the base class, if I put it on top level, doesn't work? Why is there an exception error here? You can see that when I put the parent class exception of all exceptions on top, why do you get this compile time errors here? Can anyone guess the answer? Just pause the video and guess the answer. Okay, let me tell you the answer. As soon as you write this catch block with the base class exception, it is handling all kind of exceptions that occur in your code, right? Why do you need this particular individual exceptions? It's like I have got access to the top level authority. Now, why do I need to go to the subordinates and talk about this? I don't need that, right? Okay. So just remember, if you want to use the unchecked exception, which is the base exception, okay, if you want to use this base exception, either this should be at the bottom here or it should not be there altogether. Okay, so the base exception class is there to handle any kind of unknown exceptions. Okay, but the known exception should always be at the top. Okay, and the base exception should always be at the bottom or the down level. Okay, so I hope this is clear. Now imagine I will give you a scenario, something like this. Let us go to the whiteboard again and let's talk about something important now. Imagine you guys have opened a restaurant, okay? And here you were preparing good food and you have created, say, many dishes. And morning you have opened at 10:30 a.m. and then you have been waiting till 7 p.m. but there are no customers. Okay? My question is, even though there are no customers, are you going to keep your restaurant open? Yes. I'm asking, will your restaurant be open even though there are no customers? The answer is no, right? A big no. You cannot keep your restaurant open even if there are no customers. Okay? So you have to close the restaurant at the end of the day, right? Correct? So let's come back to our code and try to understand the same thing. So what I am asking you is, if you have initialized any resources of the operating system, you have to close the resources even if there is any exception in your code. Okay, so in that kind of cases, what do you do? Okay, there is a finally block in Java which actually executes no matter what happens to your code. Okay, that means this finally block will always execute irrespective of the execution situation of your code. Whatever happens to your code, this line or this block will always be executed. Okay, so I am the finally block. I will get executed no matter what. Okay, so just to be meaningful, I've written this sentence. Now let's run this code and see what we get. Yes, you can see here, guys. I am the final block. I will get executed no matter what. As I said, this finally block is used to release the resources of the operating system. Okay, fine. I hope you've understood this. So this is it about the part one, guys. In the part two, I will be talking about many important concepts like the throw keyword and the throws keyword. Let me go back to the Microsoft board, and here we will discuss about some things. The throw keyword, the throws keyword, and about a very important concept where I will show you how to utilize this throws keyword. Okay, we'll talk about the buffered reader. Okay, so those things will be covered in part 2 and part 3 of our exception handling tutorial. Okay, fine. So with this, we have come to the end of part 1, guys. I hope you have understood this. Please remember the finally block is used to actually release the resources of the operating system that you are utilizing. Maybe the internet connection, maybe the database connection, maybe any kind of resources that you were starting. We have to close those resources. Okay, that is generally done in the finally block. Okay, now to get a simple overview, let us look at a PPT. Okay, so let us just focus on the basics so that we can remember the definitions that we have learned. Okay, so exception handling, as I told you earlier, exception handling is a programming concept and a mechanism used to manage and respond to exceptional conditions or errors that may occur during the execution of the program. Okay, these exceptional conditions are often referred to as exceptions. I told you, right? Anything that disturbs the normal flow of execution of your code is known as an exception. Okay, then let us talk about some important points. You can see here in any software application, various situations can arise that disturb the normal flow of execution. These situations can include errors, unexpected input, hardware failures, network issues, or any other exceptional event that deviates from the expected behavior of the program. Okay? Whenever such situations occur, exceptions are raised. They are raised by the developer, whoever is writing the code. Okay? And to know about exception and to deal with exceptions is a very important part for a Java developer. Okay, guys? Now, you can see here exception handling allows developers to anticipate and handle these exceptional conditions in a structured and controlled manner rather than allowing them to cause the program to terminate. Okay, as I showed you, our program should not terminate, it should actually go with the normal flow but with some error messages. Okay, so by employing exception handling, developers can gracefully handle errors and take appropriate actions to handle exceptional situations. Okay, so exception handling is a very important part of any programming languages, and to know and learn about this is very important if you are going to build a career as a developer in any programming language. Okay, now let us go about the 4 steps that we have here. The first thing is throwing an exception. Okay, so we try that in the try block and then we catch it in the catch block. You can see here, right, catching an exception. Then the hierarchy, you need to know that as I showed you in the code. First, we should have the checked exceptions that we know about, and finally, we should have the base class of the exception class. Okay, and then we should have the finally block, if at all required, where we should close the OS resources that we have used during the execution of a code. Okay, and finally, we should have the exception propagation, how the flow of the execution is working. Okay, so you should know about all these things. Fine, guys. I hope you have understood this. Let's go to the last slide here. This is the basic overview. Okay. So exception handling can vary by programming language. I have showed you in Java. You can learn about this in C++ or Python. But the base logic is absolutely same. If there is any abrupt termination of your code, that is not a good practice. So you should use exceptions to handle those. Okay. And you can see here, most modern programming languages provide built-in support for it. Okay. Developers can improve software by using exception handling to handle exceptional conditions and provide error messages or recovery strategies. Okay. I hope you've understood this. So thank you guys for being with me in this tutorial. I hope you have liked it. If you have any doubts regarding this code or the tutorial, please write your doubts in the comment section. I'll be very happy to clarify them. And at the same time, if you like this video, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon, because that will motivate us to bring more good content to you. And thank you for listening and thank you for being with us. Till the next part, Bye bye and happy learning.